Hey, welcome to The Jig is Up. My name is Darcy. And before we get to today's conversation, I wanted to let you all know that if you want to show your support for the show and help keep us advertisement free, then head over to our Patreon page, and there you can pledge anywhere from $1 and up. What you get for that is you get access to exclusive content. You get there's rewards there for pledging, and depending on how much you pledge. And also lately we've been posting a weekly blog on there, so you can check that out as well. So feel free to head over there. The link will be in the description of the show. And now onto the show. I had a chance to head up to Fort McMurray and sit down with a few of the community members up there and just have a chat with them about the history of Moccasin Flats and the future of their community. So I hope you guys enjoy. Here's my conversation with the people up in Fort McMurray. All right, well, welcome to The Jig is Up, and I'm joined here today by Gail and Bill, and we're up in Fort McMurray, and we're going to be talking about Moccasin Flats and a little bit of history there. And so just if you guys want to introduce yourselves, Gail.
Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having this interview with us for The Jig is Up.
Yep.
Interested in saying my little bit about the Moccasin Flat era. My name is Gail Gallup. I was brought to Fort McMurray in 1966 with my dad, George, and my mom, Bertha. My maiden name is Clark. I settled down, went to the old Peter Pond High School. I worked at the Fort Theater for almost 3 years, something about 50 cents an hour, I think. Big money for me, and a job. And so I was very happy to live in Fort McMurray, coming from a farm where we didn't have access to the stores and such. I enjoyed a lot of time at the Sny, I might say, because as teenagers, we would often go down there. We'd take a big ghetto blaster and set it up on the docks, and we'd go swimming. Those of us brave enough to stand the waters of the Sny. It was a great place for us to meet, and so I really loved the pristine wilderness down there and the beauty of it. And that is the part that I think most upset me when they put up the Syncrude Towers later on. I did settle down in Fort McMurray. I met my husband here, whose own grandmother, Granny Mary Rose LaCorde, lived down at the Sny area. So I would often go and visit her and have a cup of tea with her. She loved her tea, and she'd always try to feed us, and some fish that she'd caught and cooked. And she was just really liked her. She had a very humble place to live. Some people might call it a shanty nowadays because it was just made out of clapboards and very put up. But it housed her. It housed her bed and a little kitchen area and a little living room area. And it was just all open, much like a cabin would be. So she did go to Fort McKay. She still did a lot of visiting in Fort McKay and hunting, as she told us stories when I visited her. And she was a Métis, very a lot of indigenous or I guess what you call Indian blood in her. She was used to the nomadic way, and so she would go away in the winter and do trapping, and then in the summer when she could come back and it was warm enough, she'd go back to her little house along the Sny. I believe a Pat Shot also, that was Sonny's uncle, married to his Mary Rose's daughter, lived there, and he was more vocal about because all of a sudden they were told that they were to be moving, and she really didn't have any place to move to. You couldn't buy land from Fort McMurray. My dad tried when he come up here, and the town was really quite hanging on to it.
Oh, okay.
There were a lot of big landholders in Fort McMurray in those days, because I happened to have been working with the town in the town at the time as a young, just graduated from Alberta Vocational School, and I was a secretary. So I did work there, and I saw the many holdings that just on a few particular people did hold in those areas of town, and you couldn't buy anything. Because people did try to buy down at the Clearwater and the Sny area, and they were saying, "Oh no, you can't because you'll be flooded out, and we can't sell this." But they end up developing there themselves. So,
how convenient.
How convenient. Yeah. So I think there was a lot of underhanded, maybe deals that went on in those days, which we wouldn't have any knowledge of. However, it was quite shocking what did happen eventually. They were told to move. If they were offered, they would get some help to move and such. But there were people who had better houses than Mary Rose LaCourt, and they didn't want to leave. Such as Pat Schott and them. And I don't know all the names of the families, but a lot of people here do. Elmer Winiandi remembers it quite clearly. Bill Ludet will talk about it. I myself do remember it quite clearly. There was even a little petition that was garnered to get names to stop the progress of them mowing those houses down.
Wow.
It didn't go, but they tried. I remember my little sister-in-law, she could have been more than 14, 15, and they had her out getting signatures for this petition. Connie Clark. She still remembers that, as does her other sister, Patsy. Unfortunately, the family of Mary Rose LaCourt on my former husband's family has passed away, but they were very much impacted. Their Uncle Pat, I do believe he was one of the ones that ended up in jail for protesting this development. Oh, wow. Yes. So it wasn't pretty, and we didn't have any news coverage coming from, say, Edmonton, Calgary, any of the bigger centers. This is all kept here. And it hit our little McMurray today, however. But I missed the fact they did bulldoze those houses down and displaced everybody. Yeah. And some did, eventually get someplace to live, but it was never the same for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Never the same. Yeah. You can imagine it's like a third world country. They come to your house and say, you can't live there anymore because we want the property. And that's pretty much what happened.
Wow.
So to me, they were more forced than they were left willingly.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were like evicted, even though they weren't tenants.
Yeah.
And yes, it's been known that our Métis relatives in the past were what we know as roadside allowance people because we weren't given land. We weren't recognized by the Constitution, which we are the last 4 years when they finally made it a Supreme Court mandate that Section 35 would welcome us as from the past people that should have been acknowledged and given some land compensation. So we didn't get it, and you had to live where you could live.
For sure, yeah.
They weren't welcome on the reserves. They weren't welcome in a white man settlement. They were very ostracized. Even though my great-great-grandpa, Louise and Houle, fought during the rebellion, he was an interpreter, and because he could speak so many languages, the Cree, the French, the Michif, and English. And so, the forgotten people, they really lost a great person when they lost Louis Riel, of course, and that's when a lot of them did move north into the Peace River country in Alberta.
Yeah.
It was this topic was kind of buried for years. Nobody really brought it up once the deed was done and the building was erected and the people moved in there. But it was a horrible building too. It was all concrete. You take a ride down there and see. It's not very pleasant after being used to such a beautiful landscape down there, and then see these great big concrete towers rise up there.
Wow.
Not very nice, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't too impressed with the planning department at that time.
Yeah.
We started these talks just because of the recent Truth and Reconciliation program that has been brought forward.
Yeah.
And the town, actually, the RMBW here approached us to get some more information. So we are now doing a fact-finding report. Okay. We've hired two very educated professional people to do that for us. So I'll pass the mic over to Bill. I'm sure he has other things to relate to. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gail. And thank you, Darcy, for allowing us to give you our input on this subject. My name is Bill Ludet, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the McMurray Métis. And it was through this position in that I got to push our vision and work towards getting it. And our vision is about being at some point a land claim will happen for the Métis Nation up in this area. Mm-hmm. So, of course, during our discussions, One of our actually academics that has worked with us on different research, he came to us with this idea that he wanted to do his thesis on a land issues in the Fort McMurray area.
Okay.
So and of course, Moccasin Flats was always a story that was out there, and he really wanted to do some research on it. And we talked it over, and we thought, hey, this is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And, we should put some resources to it to ensure that it would be ready by September.
Yeah.
And we definitely have all the people that we could get for him to interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, he jumped on it because, like I said, no opportunity to do a thesis and have a community behind you as it's being done.
Absolutely.
And, of course, our biggest thing was... there's been stories, from both sides for years on this, and we wanted to get to the facts.
Yeah.
We know there's something happened, but, you get over the years, stories change and that, but, you could dig right down to the newspaper clippings and just the land transfers. And
for sure,
So we needed all those facts before we, even talked to the municipality. And it was great because the municipality wanted to know about this stuff too. They got, volumes of information on this. And, they were right out front with us and they said, called us in with their legal department. And they said, here's all the stuff that we've had. And we certainly want to share this with you guys because we like to get to the facts too. And, with the whole thing about this truth and reconciliation, they want to do their part with the truth. Yeah. And we can figure out reconciliation later when all the facts are on the table.
Yeah.
I know that there's not only Métis in that region, there was First Nations also. And we want to get down to that too, because there is still families that are around, that were impacted.
Okay.
And, if there's any way that we can somehow get to the point where there's an apology and some type of a reconciliation that these families that are still around can, feel a little bit relieved and that there's been acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So of course, that's what we're on. We're on a tight timeline, and everybody's been moving ahead with getting people interviewed. Just this last week, we were in Edmonton.
Okay.
For a regional council meeting. And, we were very fortunate that the president from Fort Chip, Métis, actually was born there in a tent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So they were one of the families, the McDonalds, that were impacted. And, you can really see this. When we bring this up in our meetings, you can feel the feeling of people being hurt, eh?
Yeah.
And, it brings tears to people's eyes still to this day, what happened.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, there's, like I said, there's an opportunity for us to, resolve some of that, we're there for that. And, like there's others that have, you'll see pictures in the old pictures where there's a guy on the megaphone there, trying to rally.
Yeah.
They were out there actually standing in front of the cat trying to,
Wow.
So this is really important stuff. And he was at this, we got the chance to interview him. We got some very good information because there was also the media that was there. And they're looking for the contact. The guy's older now, but they said he's still alive and wow. he has reels of information that if they can pull that back, that would be great.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about Moccasin Flat, I think people get the impression this happened 100 years ago, but this was actually quite recently, relatively, right?
Relatively recently, myself, my grandmother lived just about a block down the road where the Boston Pizza is today.
Yeah.
But there was another issue there. They expropriated a whole block of Métis in that region. For the purpose of, they said that it was a road going through.
Yep.
And once they got all the lots, then they turned the road and actually made that into a commercial district. So,
Nice.
there's a lot of those issues. There also happened down in Waterways, where they moved a whole pile of Métis families out also. And this is interesting, and because Harvey Sykes actually wouldn't move.
Oh, right. Oh,
And he's still there today.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, this may help them resolve that issue too, eh?
Okay.
So, all this is great information. We got to have the facts. And, this is not something that we feel has to go to any courts or anything.
Yeah.
But, this is something that we can work out with the municipality. We're very good friends with the council there.
Yeah.
And, this is something that, will pull us together a little bit better, and we can work on a lot of this stuff to move forward in that area, because there will be some development, and there's got to be some kind of recognition of what was there in the past.
Yeah. Now, and it sounds like they've been pretty receptive to you guys and to dealing with this. So,
Yeah.
What I guess what are some of the outcomes that has there been anything talked about? Well, let's set aside land for Métis people now, or is there anything like that that's kind of been talked about, or?
Well, we've talked about this in the past, and we've actually went and walked around certain areas that we feel would be appropriate. And the big thing is Métis have always been on the river. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing we need is access to that river, for our members.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was a time when, all the guys would come in from Fort Chip, and that's where they'd go to the Snai, and they were able to pull their boats up there, and they were safe.
Yeah.
And today they don't have that.
Right.
So we're looking for somewhere where that we can provide some of those accommodations that were there in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking, Gail, about what happened in the past, you had mentioned that there was people that actually were arrested during this. So how many, was there a number of how many people got arrested during the protests, or?
Well, I don't know the amount of people that they did put in jail.
Yeah.
I really don't
have
that information, but that is one thing, as Bill said, that we're investigating.
Okay.
Because I just know for a fact that there were some people, and I
sure.
believe Pat Schott was one of them.
Okay.
That's the only name that I recall.
Yeah.
Because he was close.
Wow.
He was my husband's uncle.
And you said there wasn't much from your media coverage as far as,
not from
provincial-wide
outside,
or national.
not that I remember.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you got to think too that that was a different time.
Yeah.
Those were the 70s.
Yeah, 1970s.
Around 1970. I would say my girls were born 1975, maybe 77.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know the exact date, but another that today has the story when they were evicted.
For sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like my earliest memories were when my dad, and this would have been probably sometime in the early 60s, mid 60s, because we'd come from Uranium City during the summer holidays for our visit grandmothers, grandparents, and cousins, and we'd go walking down there. My dad would go visit all his friends, and there was some relatives there. The one that really I think about lots is Bobby Armit. He had a little place down right in the Willows there, and I still recall the dog team he had. He had huge dogs, like they were something else, and him and his wife, and there was a son too. I think his name is Robert Armit.
Sounds familiar. Yes, yes.
So he's still alive too, and we're looking to track him down to get an interview.
Okay.
But there's while some were definitely a little wooden shacks, but there was people that lived in tents, and like I said, they'd have wall tents and whatnot, so
for sure.
Yeah, so it was something that we're going to really get down to and find out, and get the story out. Make sure
absolutely.
It's accurate. And
you had mentioned a time. It's very time sensitive. You said something in September, I think.
We want it done by September. In that there is our Métis consultation policy that's going to be going to cabinet, and this is good evidence that we can put forward too on some of the stuff that's happened.
Yeah. Now, where does the province stand on all of this? Like, I know you've mentioned you're working with the municipality, but does the province come in at some point into this and have a role to play, or are they involved now? Or
So far, there hasn't been.
okay,
But, like this is the whole purpose behind these researchers. That they're in their archives looking for all this stuff and,
yeah,
requesting certain documents. So,
for sure, yeah. Yeah, I guess it would depend on what your research shows would be dependent on what role Alberta plays. And
well, and that's the whole thing. I know that right now there's probably a little bit of finger pointing going on, and with there was industry, there was development, there was all that stuff, and until we actually have the information, we don't want to blame anyone, because we do have agreements with some of those industry players, and we certainly aren't out to do a smear campaign.
Yeah, well, and I think it's I think it's great that you mentioned that you don't see this being a court issue. So, and I think that's encouraging. I think a lot of things could be solved without the legal system necessarily. But
well, something like this, if it were to go to court, it would be years.
Yeah,
and my whole thing is there's still elders alive today that need resolution on this, and I don't believe that. Doing, like I said, a smear campaign and taking it through the courts, that it's going to help anybody.
Yeah. So I guess what would be the ultimate goal once the research comes out? What do you guys think would be? Would it just be an apology, or would it be kind of an apology and maybe? I guess what would be your ultimate outcome?
Well, like I said, it's all about that truth and reconciliation, and we're very clear that. There'll never be reconciliation unless there's a land transfer.
Yeah. Okay. And would you you mentioned along the river, are you looking for a similar size, or is it just kind of, that's to be negotiated later?
Yeah, that would be something that we'd talk about once all the facts are on the table.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else about Moccasin Flats that you guys, I guess, want people to know about, or want everybody that's listening to the podcast to know, at least?
Well, like I said, if there's anybody out there that has been impacted, that has information, we'd like them to contact us and get it down on paper.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And we'll put a link to you guys in the description of the show so that people can click on there and get your contacts, emails you, and that kind of thing. Now, as far as what you guys are doing up here in Fort McMurray, I know the Region 1 has been in the news a lot lately. Fort Mackay's bought land and stuff like that, so it's been in the news. I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about what are some of the latest things that you guys are moving forward with as a community, as an organization. Any big announcements or anything like that? Or?
Well, of course, you heard we bought the land here we're sitting today.
Yes, I did hear that.
And that was something that we really worked hard at, because we've had many of our elders that have passed who worked on this same thing, and it was never ever accomplished. So it was a big feat, and it was done because of what we got here is a great board that works together. Mm-hmm. We've been able to hire some awesome staff, and we're in the process of building up our membership. Mm-hmm. We're over 400 members right now.
Wow!
But we intend to be up over 500 before we're through.
Wow!
And there's a possibility of if things go the way the talks on historic Métis. Mm-hmm. We have in the thousands, but they don't live here, eh? Mm-hmm. So that's always something that we want to ensure that we keep building, keep working towards the future for our youth, ensuring that our elders are taken care of today, and that's mainly what our focus is here at 1935.
Wow. So what's some of the first things? I guess once the land sale, transfer, or whatever goes through, what is, I guess, some of the first priorities for you guys? Is it like you were talking youth and seniors? Is that those kinds of things?
Funny you should mention that, because like that cultural center that we want to see built. Yeah, we got a place to build it right here.
Perfect.
And when we did our community research on it, what the people want to see, we want to see affordable daycare. We want to see accommodation for elders.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we capture the history of the area of the Métis.
Wonderful. Wow, that would be amazing. And so, Gail, is there anything, I guess, from your perspective that, any things you want to let people know about what you guys are doing up here, or?
Yes, just to back up, Bill. Bill is, for one, alluded his family is known as rights-bearing community, holding people in this community as a Métis family. Mm-hmm. We've conducted a research. We have a professional doing that with us. Okay. As well as we did a membership drive, started in February, and we really increased our membership. One of the criteria here is to be a member of the M&A, which is Métis Nation of Alberta. Yeah. They get that card and they become a member with us, provided they live in this area. But we do take them on as an associate member, just to pursue their genealogy with our researcher. Okay. So we've discovered, she said, we've made her life so easy because we've already done most of the work. We've had people come in and re-sign and declare an oath that we here, as our Métis Local 1935, are able to legally represent them if we have to in court. Mm-hmm. For instance, for a land claim. But Métis harvesting rights is important coming up for us. That's a big one. Consultation policy. We've really diligently been working on that for years, and especially this past couple of years. Yeah. And so we're looking forward to that being finalized. I'm very proud of the Métis Local here for the things that they do. Yeah. We have at the Cultural Center will really enhance our ability to have more programming. Mm-hmm. Right now we have a Cree chat club that people can come and sit and speak the language. You don't have to speak Cree, but come and have a coffee, and we have potlucks. Wonderful. We have that every week. We have Cree beading, where I've actually made a pair of gloves with beading. My first beading work. Yes, very nice. It's not as hard as people think it is, but it just takes time, right?
Yeah, patience.
It's a finite thing, but we have a lot of people at that club. Okay. We have our Métis Festival, which was a big success. We just had our 14th one last week. Okay. That was huge, and very well attended event, over 2,000 people. Wow. Yes, and we bring in school bus loads of kids, and they learn from the grade 4, 5, and 6 era about our Métis culture. Nice. We will offer jigging. We will offer, we have a few ideas even for entrepreneurship. Like we'd like to offer perhaps doing hides, which has become a lost thing of the past, which you have to go to commercial. We could set something like that up. We'd like to have an elders drop-in center where they can just come and enjoy each other. Yep. My vision is to have a little media room in the cultural center, which documents on a documentary or a video of some kind, which can chart our progress as Métis people from the early 1500s. Yeah. And so there are a lot of ideas. We did a feasibility research with ACON, and it proves that the people here are willing to back us with this cultural center. Yeah. Our industry is already backing us. We've already set funds from them. Yep. When it happens, but we weren't doing anything till we purchased the land, so that was huge. Yeah. We call this now, and actually Bill coined the term, the year of the Métis McMurray Local. Right, because we've had so many good things coming to us still. That's fantastic. And we'll keep fighting. We're not finished.
Yeah. Well, so how much land were you guys able to buy?
It's over 9 acres.
Wow.
Almost 10 acres.
Wow.
For a decent price. And the price isn't confidential, because I thought it was at first, because I was asked that by another interview, and I said, well, that's kind of private. But then I was standing beside Minister Sandra Johnson at the time, and she said, oh no, she said, it's out there. They only paid $803,000 for this 9 acres. So can you imagine in this Fort McMurray area to have put a cap on something so magnificent with such a wonderful price?
Buy a house for that.
You cannot.
10 acres.
Yeah.
Well, we were very fortunate in that, we had to provide an assessment. Mm-hmm. And we went to the municipality and we asked, well, what are you assessing that property for? Because you got to tax them, eh? Yeah. And that's what they were assessing the property at. Wow. Because it's not commercial.
Right.
So we're
Kind of got lucky there a little.
Yeah, we kind of got lucky on that one, because just across the road, it's $1 million an acre.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Holy
we're very fortunate in that.
Yeah, I would say so.
And if you look around, you see the amazing work that our crews have done out
Yeah.
there. Leveled the land, took all the stumps out. This was all burnt. We were the first building to go with the wild beast, but
Wow.
we're back here, as you can see. We're economical because we didn't purchase these buildings for that much either. So we
Right
try
on.
to keep our costs down. We have been squirreling our money away for the purchase of this land, and I'm happy to say we will not be in debt because we can buy it.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, this isn't something that came up in the last year.
No.
Have you?
We've been trying for a long time to buy the land, and it was a lot more then.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
even half, a quarter of what we're getting now.
So I guess in here in Alberta, you're always the conservative and NDP. What has been has it been a significant difference between the way governments approach or respond to the Métis in your area, your Métis local, as far as willingness to work together?
Well,
I
I
guess, on
think
land
so.
purchases and-
We've sat with late Premier Prentice at our last board table, but he didn't do anything. He knew nothing about our Aboriginal contents.
Yeah.
But with this NDP, their ministries have pushed for us. Sandra Jansen, I believe Richard Feehan also. So
Yeah, he
I can
seems
let
very-
Bill talk to that more.
Okay.
Well, I think the big thing there is they've endorsed the UNDRIP, which
Yeah.
is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Yeah.
And it just happens that the federal government is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, we seen that as, part of that reconciliation and the opportunity to, sit down with government, something that's taken a long time. We're a couple years ago, the Daniels case was finally settled after, I believe it went 17 years.
I think so. Yeah.
And, they finally said, Métis are Indians.
Yeah.
Which we've been telling them all the way along. And, it was quite funny because they wanted to interview us, after the thing come down. And they said, well, that's really great. You guys won. But what would have happened if you would have lost, eh?
Yeah.
And I said, I guess I'd be a white man.
Well, and that's an interesting thing because I know a lot of what you guys are doing and the progress you've made is more of a provincial, like buying the land. That's a provincial matter. Doing these things, even the Moccasin Flats and getting that story out there seems to be even a regional thing, somewhat of a provincial thing. So it's interesting because the federal government's supposed to have that fiduciary duty, but yet it almost seems like everything you negotiate or have to talk to, it's almost a provincial matter. Do you guys, I guess,
Well, I
find
think
the
a lot
same
of that,
thing?
a lot of that was because of in 1930 the Natural Resource Transfer Act, played a big part in the feds giving it to the province.
Yeah.
And it's always been a problem for the Métis here because when they did the treaties in 1899, they were given a script too at the same time.
Yeah.
But there was no land surveyed here.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't give any land unless it was surveyed.
Right.
So, of course, there was some fraud that happened there in that, you'd be issued a piece of paper that you had to go to Edmonton to register at the land office.
Yeah.
And then they would give them land. At that time, I believe they were saying it was in Moose Jaw. And I think there was some area in Hanna, Alberta.
Oh, okay.
So, here's where people were living, their families and that, and they were going to do this.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense, eh?
Well, and totally different geography. I mean, you're moving from here down to the prairies. It's
So the other
significantly
thing that
different.
happened was in 1938 when they did the Settlement Act. Eh?
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be 12 settlements, but all of them were in the south and out west. Eh?
Yeah.
Yet there was no settlement ever given here. So that's why you hear every once in a while we talk about unceded Métis territory.
Mm.
And this is an issue that we have to get resolved, sooner than later. Right now, we've been able to build capacity here, and it's been a lot to do with the relationships we built with industry.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear stuff how we support the pipeline, and it kind of goes against a lot of other First Nations thinking, but we also have very close ties with the First Nations here.
Yes.
And they support the pipeline.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, really unique in one way. The way we were able to build capacity was the fact that we hired people that knew the regulatory system.
Yeah.
And, that was one way to get industry to the table. And if you had statements of concern, and if they were, made sure that you hit the right timelines and they followed the right points, that you could actually get standing at a hearing.
Yeah.
So we were able to do that back in 2005. And we did it a few times, actually, and we were able to make some agreements out of it. So there's where we started building our capacity and finally being able to staff up the office. Right. And, to this point to where we are able to buy our land.
Yeah.
And, we'll continue to be very transparent in all our dealings. Mm-hmm. We talk about integrity in everything we do here.
Yeah.
So I think that's what government and industry are interested in, is being able to say that they're talking to a credible group.
Yeah.
And not only that, they'll show you our audit is out there all the time, and we follow everything to a T. Our auditor is actually one of the best in Alberta for nonprofits, and he's actually a professor at university.
Oh wow!
So that's what we figure. Go through, get the best, so that if there's ever anything that is being not done right, we can get right on it and fix it before it gets to be a problem.
Absolutely. I don't want to pry too much, but I know before the podcast we were talking briefly. You guys are not government funded.
No, no government funds at all. Actually, when they come up here to talk consultation and all that, we provide the office, and we also provide lunch.
Okay. Yeah, and that's an amazing thing in and of itself, because I think a lot of times people just think Indigenous people, they just get all this government money, but you guys are doing all these things. And it's through the industry agreements and things like that.
Industry agreements, yeah. We're just getting involved into the joint ventures that the First Nations have had opportunity at. Yeah. And but more, we've been given a few of our industry partners have done these impact benefit agreements with us.
Okay.
And that's where we get most of our funding to build work at the office here.
Yeah, we get nothing from our Métis Nation of Alberta office. Not a dime.
Wow.
Not a penny. No, we're all self-sufficient, each local.
Yeah.
And that's why we find it a blessing actually to be able to work with industry. Mm-hmm. And we do try to communicate on a amiable level. Mm-hmm. We've had to submit, of course, SO statements of concern, they call them, but it brings them to our table.
Yeah.
Until we get this consultation policy where they will have to consult with us. It's been a tough battle, actually. It's been we've had to go after industry, and but they've come forward and they work out agreements with us. Yeah. That's how we are self-sufficient. But we also do a lot of other things to get our own money. We generate money from our annual yearly golf festival.
Oh, okay.
That money goes towards, we have a bursary application. Students can get up to $3,000 per term, and we've been so successful with that and that tournament that we've managed to we've climbed up to a $1 million giveaway this summer.
Holy cow.
To students. Yes,
wow.
We put a lot of students, including my great grandson when he first started in his electrical.
Yeah.
The trades, and we're going to start helping the trades out again, I believe. But we do that. All of our functions, such as our festival, our annual Christmas dinner, those things come with a lot of legwork. We don't just pick that out of our funding. We people like Corey, they go after industry, and we get sponsorship from them to hold those events. So that helps us, supplements our putting all of our eggs in the basket. Yeah. So but it takes hard work, and it takes communication. I think is the big word here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're mostly happy to do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right on.
The other activity that I'm really proud that we're able to do is, of course, our summer students. And this started a few years ago. In that after the wildfire, out of the blue, I get this call from the Minister of Labor, from Ottawa.
Yeah.
And she says, I got 100 students if you want them.
Wow.
I said, oh my God, we. So of course we right away we got it right at it because it was already late into the year. We had to have them work for 6 weeks, but we were able to get 67 students working that summer.
Wow.
And last year we had 56 students.
Wow.
But this year on our application for students, we were only able to secure 15 because there was similar wildfires, and those summer students were going to be offered to the wildfires in BC.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But of course, Métis Nation of Alberta stepped up, Rupert's Land, and they had another 10 students. So this summer, we're glad to say that we're going to have 25.
Wow. That's awesome. And they work in the kind of wildfire kind of protection?
No, they'll be working a lot of the stuff we're going to be, as you noticed, all those trees, they're going to all be knocked down. They're going to be hauled out. Okay. There's still a lot of blueberries and raspberries and strawberries that are in that area, and we want to see if we can get one more crop out of them before we think about any kind of construction there in the next over the winter.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. I don't know if you guys have any last comments that you want to let our listeners know about.
Well, just that the jig is up. I had to use that one. Yeah, the jig is up. We are out there. We are loud and clear and transparent, as Bill said. And we're proud Métis, and we're going to resolve this once and for all, lay it to rest. And so that in history that it gets right about the Moccasin Flats and the evictions. And, we go forward. We're always talking about go forward. And we're hoping this will be the year of the Métis for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think it's wonderful to hear such positivity coming out, especially about something that really was quite negative in the past. So, I'm really excited to see what happens with that. So, all right. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time today to sit down with me. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thanks, Darcy.
Thanks. Well, I want to thank our guests for being on the show today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And until next week, the jig is up.
You are the spark that's starting a fire that will spread across this land. And it will be a fire that doesn't burn, but a fire that cleanses. A fire that ignites in our hearts and creates light.